Welcome to another episode of Battleground Chats, where I talk to interesting risk and resilience professionals from around the world. Today, I'm thrilled to have my very good friend, Jodie Wentworth, join us. Welcome, Jodie.
Hello. Hey, Craig.
So Jodie and I have known each other for way longer than
a long
we
time.
Care to admit. And our paths have crossed many, many times. But Jo, how did you get into the resilience field way back when in the UK or even here? I don't even know. Where did it begin?
Well, it definitely began in the UK. So I was on a technology project with an underwriting agency in London, and that project came to an end, and I was approached, hey, we've got this business continuity thing that we need to do something with and we need to implement. And so I helped get that off the ground and finish my time there I won't say I got it implemented. It was in, but obviously, these things take a while to embed, but I certainly got it in. And then when I left.
How did you learn that? So you were told, I've got this business continuity project, but how did you actually learn about what you were meant to be doing?
Yeah, it's a really funny one. I guess there was an external party that was supporting them, and my role was to understand that and then work out how to make it happen within the organisation. And I'd had a change management background, and I'd been on this job more in the communications planning and delivery as part of the project. So I think you'll know, resilience, implementing resilience and risk thinking, a lot of it isn't the technical side of the topic. It's more about your ability to inform people, bring them along for the ride, listen to what the needs of the organisation are. And I was in that zone, had that skill set, knew the organisation. And funnily enough, as soon as I got involved in that, I seemed to be evacuated from all sorts of places, like the Opera House, hotels, all sorts of places.
What do you mean? You brought the disasters with you.
I think so. And it then became every place that I then worked with had some kind of issue that they had to resolve. No. But what it did teach me is a whole lot of things that are really important about back then when I was just doing the business continuity piece that are very real. And then when I left there, I thought, I'm really interested in this notion of business continuity planning, but I'm also interested to work with a big organisation. And I sort of went online, and there just happened to be a business continuity manager role going at London Underground. And that's where I really, really learnt about the value of resilience thinking and all that goes into that. So I was there for nearly 6 years, and, we had everything there, anything from gas leaks, neighbouring buildings collapsing. We had derailments. We had a massive building fire, and then obviously we had the 7th of July bombings and the following 21st of July attempts. So it was a pretty intense 6 years, but I learned so much around the importance of business continuity. And I have to admit, when I first started, I was just developing plans, and I didn't really know what it felt to use those plans until we had a major building fire, and that's when it really informed different ways of presenting the information and the level of buy-in you have to get to with people so that they follow the process when it happens and we don't all run off doing all sorts of things. So that was a significant time of my life there.
Yeah, and so when you talk about business continuity planning then, and then you talk about all those events you have, where did the line start to blur from business continuity into incident crisis management?
Yeah, and I think that's the thing with this topic is every organisation and every type of industry may have a different way of communicating the same sorts of things, and that's about preparing for anticipating, preventing, but also preparing for when things happen. And so business continuity at London Underground was very much around the back office. So it was all the supporting services that enabled the trains to keep moving. And then the other side of that was all the incident and emergency response that was the trains and dealing with the incidents on the trains. And the two elements had to connect somehow between the back office during a crisis and the front, I guess, the front line stuff.
The operational side.
The operations, yeah. And then that led to a more senior sort of director, I can't remember what the leadership team was called back then. It was a while ago, but yeah, they then came in, and we didn't actually specifically call it crisis management, but that's really where it was hanging out.
Were you using the gold, silver, bronze concept back then, or is that a new concept?
No, we were definitely using the gold, silver, bronze, and that made perfect sense operationally. It was more interesting back office because there's a different purpose to gold, silver, bronze, a bit like here with the processes we have here. It's a little bit, one is about, immediacy and the other. Yeah. So, but very similar, but I liked the different levels. They made absolute sense to me. It was, I was trying to think,
what was the disconnect or not disconnect? How did you connect them, right? Because connecting those two, we have spent many years together trying to connect these two. Connecting these two is often a huge challenge. What did you learn about that?
Yeah, so I don't know if this is appropriate to say, but when I first joined London Underground, the notion of a business continuity manager for back office side was new. And this was back in early 2000s. And
but the whole concept was new back then.
Yeah, and someone had said to me, I don't know why we're employing you. We've never had anything go wrong this way. It all happens out on the trains. What are you here to do, for back office? And then,
you in your mind were thinking, well, I bring the disasters with me.
No. Well, the thing is, we had the what was called the Telstar house fire in London, and you can find it online. There was it was a pretty dramatic fire in one of our buildings, and from that day on, no one could say it's not going to happen to us because it happened to us, and it was a challenging time, but it was probably the best thing to have happened to be able to promote the importance of this kind of thinking. But really, I think the one of the priorities of the back of house kind of business continuity planning was about how do we keep the trains moving. And so anything that happened to us had to make sure that the critical processes that supported that the movement of those trains or the network to keep going, obviously they were prioritised. So it was about demonstrating the value of this kind of planning in the back office because it ultimately helps to keep things moving. But it was a constant challenge, and I think when we had the 7th of July bombings, we had locations that were impacted or near locations that were impacted. We had, all the incident response and everything that went into that, which is phenomenal, the effort that people put in. And our role, whilst areas around our buildings were disrupted and our day-to-day processes weren't impacted other than people not being able to move around because the network closed. Ours was how can we facilitate, one, are we okay? And secondly, what can we do to help the processes happening in the response on the operations side of a thing. So let us in, we can fast track things. So we moved from getting prepared to manage the disruption to the back office to more about, how can we reprioritise what we're doing to support the response that's happening out on the network. And that was beyond the event of the day. It was, it was the lengthy response and recovery. Yeah.
Absolutely.
But and there were learnings from that. How can we better connect? But I think it's just continually every organisation has that
absolutely,
that
and
piece.
continue evolving and learning, and you got to have that feedback loop so that you're constantly learning and improving.
That's what I love. Actually, I'm kind of pretty passionate when it comes to business resilience, and for me, one of the highlights of it is the fact that it's kind of that continuous learning. It's like experience,
never finished.
Then look at it. Yeah, it's never finished, and you have to be. It takes a bit to get used to that because you never. it's never going to be perfect. Life isn't like that. But you learn different ways of adapting it. You're constantly going, how can I make this better? How can I improve the way we're doing it? And that's what keeps it interesting, I think, too.
Yeah.
You don't sit and forget. It's an ongoing challenge.
And you learn so much about the organisation that no one else knows about because you've looked at the whole operations end to end and understood it.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you've got resilience teams in your organisation, they are people that you want to sense check change, you want to sense check opportunities because they can often see the bigger picture. And we're also naturally the critical thinkers, so we're usually, we're often going to worst case.
Yeah,
but that's not
of course we are.
But that's not a bad thing to do. That helps you predict not anticipate things that might come and what can I change now so that we don't get there. It's actually, it's not an unhealthy way of challenging yourself. And I must confess,
Jo, me and you have picked a few things in the past, haven't we, right? So we've done hundreds of exercises together over the years, I reckon, and we take a risk-based approach to these things.
Yeah.
And therefore, we have preempted a number of things in the past that have eventually...
Absolutely, yeah. They might not have been exactly the same, but they were pretty darn close. And I know the people who took part in those would often say, we were just talking about this the other day. We were, and even in the moment, there's a little bit of light relief because they're like, we did this. We did this a month ago. Yeah, exactly. So after London, I came back to Australia and I went into consulting. And you'll know this, obviously, that one of the best things about consulting and still within the field of business resilience is the fact that you get to dip in and out of so many different industries.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you see the similarities. I've done sort of animal pharmaceutical, manufacturing, food manufacturing. They're not that dissimilar to universities. Someone always has a freezer that has to be kept at minus 80.
Absolutely. The famous freezer stories.
But, so there's so much, the beauty of consulting is you get to dip into all these industries and see what's similar and what's different and see how things might not work or work in different environments. So did that for a while, then jumped back into industry and, hanging out, did a bit of energy and then a bit of transport and infrastructure. So
back to your roots almost. And
yeah, it is.
And so, Jo, if you could kind of pick apart all the things you've done, what's the one or two things that you've learnt or takeaways, or you think, if I could just tell the risk and resilience profession one or two things, what do you think it is? Because me and you have been through a lot together, right? At Deloitte and since then. And so, what's your big one or two things the audience can take away?
Yeah.
It's not easy, is it? Because you've been through a lot.
I think there's a couple of things that stand out for me. One, in the way we can demonstrate our value to the organisation. So part of that value, but also it can be really frustrating when you're the business resilience professional trying to implement these sorts of things. But you do expose those bits of the business that aren't working, because if it's not working in the day-to-day, when things go wrong, that's where you're going to see the most strain. And so the value is you can reveal that and you can help to resolve it. Through what we do, enables people to share information and and better connect. So you can often expose those things. It can be annoying you're trying to implement something or keep something going and you're having to kind of adjust to it, but it is a great value. The other one, I think, when I think of crisis leadership, I think, it's good leadership. And so all the things that you might do to develop that capability in your response teams is actually a little bit of a takeaway pack that they can apply to their business as usual life. And I think that is a value. That is a great value. That's where you're actually improving the day-to-day as well as equipping for when things go wrong.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. I think the more we give back to the business, the more, one, we show our value, but two, giving back. It's really important. We've learned a lot along the way. We might as well give back.
Yeah, and I think people walk away from, when you do exercises, most people walk away having learned something about themselves, having learned a technique or a way of thinking that they can then apply to the day-to-day. Some don't, but that's just life.
But that's on them, Jo. That's on them.
But we've had many chats about that.
On that note, our time here is up, I'm afraid. It's been a fascinating chat. We could talk for hours, and me and you do talk for hours.
We often do.
So I look forward to having you on Battleground Chats again in the future. But Jodie Wentworth, thank you for your time.
Thanks, Craig. I really appreciated it.